The real world doesn't hand out report cards. It rewards people who can communicate, adapt, lead, recover from failure, and take ownership. So the question becomes, are we preparing students simply to perform academically, or are we preparing them to succeed in life? And because this is a financial podcast, we also have to ask, how do these same traits influence future earning potential, career growth, financial discipline, and the ability to make smart decisions as adults? So, welcome to Paladin Financial Talk. I'm your host, Nikki Foley, and today I'm joined by featured guest Megan Stone, Leadership Director at Gentry Academy, but also author and founder of Stone Foundations of Learning. And she's going to discuss the traits that truly prepare students for life beyond the classroom. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, Megan, I have Megan on a pedestal here. And I just said before the show started that she is somebody that when she speaks, I just want to absorb all of it so that hopes that I can be a better parent and I can just take a few bits that she shares along the way and infuse those into my kids and my parenting. And so with our topic today, we are going to explore, and this is part of a series, Megan, that we've been doing, is exploring how families navigate education and financial decisions, leadership development, and preparing students really for beyond the classroom. And so we're hoping with your knowledge and some of our featured guests that we're having that we can examine how money and identity and opportunity and all these life skills really can intersect through college and those life beyond college. And so that's our goal. And so Megan, let's start by talking about you. And like I said, I've had you on this pedestal and I almost like it's just Megan is absolutely amazing. And the things that come out of your mouth just stop me so often. So let's talk a little bit about you. We got to know each other through our time at Gentry Academy, where I served on the board, but helped in a lot of different capacities through the years as that was becoming as a private school and then moved into a charter school. And then we got to know each other, primarily through working in those things. But today I want to talk about you. You're author of a book for students titled Own Your Own Education. You have your own company and you have done tons of research through the years. And so I'm going to let you talk about that. But you just bring such good perspective to leadership development and helping young people prepare for life beyond the classroom. And I just really appreciate what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to you sharing this with those that are listening. So just walk us through your background. Tell us a little bit about you and what you think might be important to our conversation today.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you. That's very humbling for you to say because I think very highly of you as well. So I appreciate you letting me be here. Just a quick background about me. I'm actually a human biologist by trade and went into pharmaceutical sales. Probably would have been a little bit more lucrative to stay in that career. But I had a passion for helping kids and I went back and got my master's in education. I taught in Eden Prairie and Edina before I ended up starting my own company. And throughout that time when I was helping kids, I recognized they didn't know how to do school and that's their job. From kindergarten until post-secondary education, that's their job, is to be a student. And when you don't feel good about your job, a lot of other things suffer. And so we need to help these young people learn how to do their job and have confidence within that. I have, as you said, written a book, Own Your Education, but more importantly, even before that, I was asked by my publisher to ask post-secondary educators where they saw the disconnect with humans that were coming into that post-secondary 2 or 4 year colleges and even trade schools. And when I polled over 500 professors over the country, the main issues that they were seeing were critical thinking, effective planning skills, study strategies, which that would translate into a work environment as, do you know how to get your job done or learn the material that you need to be successful at your job, and also accountability. And so over the years, those are the things that I've really focused on because at our school at Gentry, or whether I'm working with a school district, which I've worked with many school districts as well, how do we not prepare them for just this year, but 5 or 6 years down the road? Because these are skills that they need to learn so that they can be successful in their job of a student, in their job of leading their life, and especially when it becomes something as huge as job making decisions or where they want to go or what they want to do and ultimately what they're going to do with their finances. So it's a very important skill that doesn't start and can't just start when they turn 18 and leave your home.
Such good perspective. Let's go through those again. So the life skills that students need today that really translate beyond the traditional education. So critical thinking,
Correct.
study strategies, accountability, and I missed one of them there. What was the other one? Was there another one in there?
Yes, effective planning.
Okay.
And I don't say time management because if people want to read my book, we actually go through and look at when we talk about time management, oh, use a planner or do something like this. We really dig down deeper into that next layer of stuff. And so again, there's a solution to help these young people become their best selves. It just is that we need to be consistent and articulate with them about expectations and helping them to be able to manage, their lives.
Yeah. As adults who have been exposed to some of this and can zoom out and say, kind of, here's the theory or here's a structure. Well, they've never had that exposure. And so introducing them is just half the battle, it sounds like. And
Right.
what are these concepts and how do they play into who they are today and then where it goes in the future? So would you say there's anything outside of those that, the traditional education system sometimes overlooked, or does it really, a lot of things just boil right down to those four general
I think
themes?
you can, obviously, there's a lot of buzzwords around there. You can talk about leadership, you can talk about ownership. And the idea of ownership is really, in my opinion, I talk about in the book and often with young people, do you want to rent your life or do you want to own it? And when we rent something, we don't have that pride. We don't have the confidence to know that we can handle something per se. If you were going to rent a car, I doubt many people are going to run it through a car wash before they return.
Yeah.
Maybe you're one of those people,
No,
but
I'm
I'm
not.
not.
This resonates. Yeah.
If they saved up the money for it and if they had to pay their own insurance and these other kind of financial decisions, there's a pride that goes with that because they truly do own it.
Yeah.
And how they handle that, how they drive that car, maybe where they park that car, how they treat that car is very different. And so when you look at that in just a simple example like that, talking about how do we help young people have the confidence to own all of those aspects of their life. But again, I think you can throw out a lot of buzzwords, but those were the four that professors are saying they are not seeing in young people.
So if a student and a young person can start to develop those and have awareness of those, and they'll probably continue to develop those for all of college and beyond that, if that's the path they go, how do you think that influences their confidence and their identity?
I don't know how you can have confidence if you don't know that you can do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get asked by maybe younger parents, was it okay that I make my child's lunch? And I don't ever want to pretend to be in their home and know how their home functions. But what I always say is if they know how to make their own lunch and that's a service or a gift or a blessing that you want to give them is making their lunch every day. I did that. I love making lunches. I love making food. But my kids could make their own lunch.
Yeah.
So that's where that difference is if you have to intervene or if you have to help, we need to do that as parents. But could your child do that on their own? And that as a mom, that as parent. And that's where you need to do the work, making sure that they can do it on their own. So it's fine to make your children's lunch, but it's not okay if they don't know how to do it on their own. Same with planning, same with accountability, all of those things. This is not about a parenting choice, but it's more about the abilities that you're developing within your young human.
What a great way to boil it down to a foundation level to look at things. And so if you do not believe your child can do something, that would be an area to focus.
Right.
And then from there, it all becomes fairly simple of, do you want to do it? Do you want them to do it? And how does it work within your household?
Right.
But focusing on, can they do it? And if they can't, and we think that's a skill set that's important later in life, then that's where we put our time and attention.
Exactly. And I think things that exhaust us as parents, this happens in the workplace as well.
Yeah.
You're exhausted by a fellow, employee. And you realize I might be doing something that they're supposed to be doing. I might be taking over something that they're doing. And that's why this is exhausting me. And I think as parents, we become exhausted by certain situations. It might be coming home and homework. It might be, there's various aspects, or the disconnect, or that they don't know why they did poorly on something. That's a time to step back and say, do they know how to take control over this? Do they have the tool to be able to do this? Because if they don't, then that's where you put that energy. How can I help with this tool? How can I teach them this tool? And then how can I hold them accountable to the tool?
When I heard you say, you can be exhausted by something, you think of this child who is in your household for 18 years, and it's the same characteristics that show up in them. That is exhausting, and it can be. I mean, all the love, and there's all kinds of wonderful things that go along with it. But if there is something that is not like you, or you see recurring, you kind of give up. You kind of throw up your hands sometimes, and you stop trying in that area. And so to hear you say, step back, think about the tools that they need, and can they take control? It simplifies this concept.
Well, I think it becomes really overwhelming as a parent. I mean, with social media through the roof on everything, no parent is perfect. And to stop and say, what do I know that has made me successful? What do I know that has helped me in knowing how to study or be held accountable? And then making sure they know those tools. A simple example of where kids lose that confidence, I can just give a very brief example, would be a planner. So when I started working with kids over 25 years ago, one-on-one, and they would tell me, I don't have homework. And then we would go and look, and they had not completed their homework, and they weren't lying. They 100% in their head had started their homework. And then as the day went on, maybe something happened in the hallway or on the bus, or they were really excited about something. And in their mind, they had convinced themselves that they had finished their homework. And so then they don't write it in their planner. They don't go and check a Google Classroom or some other kind of Schoology or something on their online. And then they come back the next day and they are convinced. And then they walk in and they have not completed their homework. They lose all trust in themselves. We as adults now know, well, if I've forgotten an appointment and I got in trouble at my work because of it, or better yet, I didn't check my balance. I've seen that with my daughter. I'm like, do you know? Well, I didn't know that it was going to come through. Well, you should be knowing that. We don't have a checkbook anymore. We're checking off and balancing it. So knowing and anticipating those things and teaching them how to be held accountable and have confidence that they know their truth and that they know what's going on.
This is where I think you're so powerful, Megan, in the way that you position things is, as a parent, so often we look at the surface level of the situation. In the planner, not in the planner. How could you forget type of terminology starts showing up in conversations, or what do you mean? I don't understand, And what you just said there is that they lose all trust in themselves. And so it is so much deeper and richer than just this surface level. And they can't distinguish between what is surface level, tangible conversation, I need to put it in the planner, versus the root, and it going deep into who they are as people, and the confidence, and some of those words that can stay with your kids for forever, for a long time, until they learn otherwise. And so
school and things are going to be hard. I mean, there are things that are thrown at kids today that, we didn't have growing up. Well, I certainly didn't. But if they have the confidence of knowing how to handle themselves, or getting a question answered, or knowing the expectation of what they need to get done, then they'll be more likely to be able to handle those tough situations.
Yeah. And you just answered my next question, where I was going. You did great. Is, do these things impact workplace success and leadership ability? And how can they not? They don't stop when you walk out the door of high school and all those things. They become a learned situation.
Well, and it can be simple things. You obviously, with having younger kids than myself, are still setting up their doctor's appointments and their haircuts and things like that. But when they go to the doctor, even when they're young, teaching them, do you have any questions about your body? Do you want me to write them down? You should ask your doctor these questions. Those are little tiny things that help them to know, wow, my doctor is a trusted person that I can ask questions of.
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing to be able to do. When they're able to, encourage them to set up their own doctor's appointments and their own haircut appointments. And they may feel really scared about it. The phone, for many of these young people, they don't talk on the phone. And so it might be, let's practice that before you do it, or I'll sit here with you. And if you get stumbled up, I'm here to help you those first few times, because then how are they going to call someone at work? How are they going to send an appropriate email? Young humans should be sending emails. I'm not saying that they know how to type, but you can be their secretary. There's a difference between taking it over and being a helper as a parent. And so if you are that helper, hey, you need to send this email to your teacher, let's say. I'm happy to be your secretary. What would you like it to say? And it's okay for you to say, when I'm typing this doesn't really make sense. Can we discuss it? What are you trying to get at here? Those are ways that you are supporting them and quote unquote, their secretary or their assistant, but you're not taking it over. And it's not just go send them an email. They probably need to be held accountable that they've sent that email.
Yeah. I think parents oftentimes will take shortcuts because there's only so much time in the day. And they might do something because of efficiency. And what you have done there is taking it over versus helper. You're still giving parents an opportunity to create some efficiency for the household by doing things, but letting the child direct the thinking behind it and help them, find their way to the point, the overall big picture. And so,
well, and when you're talking about research, and I don't need to get into all the studies, but that is what really came out initially when I was doing a lot of the research for my books and my presentations, was that, and it is, we have less time in the day. We're over busy. The problem that we're not recognizing is that, yes, it may seem more efficient to fix it for them. I understand that. But in the long run, exponentially so, it's going to be difficult. I once gave a talk, and a mother of a fifth grader came to me and said, you don't understand. If I don't make sure that she gets all her homework done, the next day is horrible, and she's screaming and she's crying. And I was very sympathetic. I get it. I mean, I've been in those situations too, but I stopped and I said, do you want to fix this now as a fifth grader? When, to be honest, it won't really matter if she fails this test as much. Or do you want to try to navigate this with a 16 or a 20-year-old when they're out of your home? And so I think we need to stop and recognize our kids are capable. I mean, when did your kids start telling you, I can do it myself?
Yeah.
2,
Oh
3?
yes, exactly. My daughter is, I could tell you story after story where her personality is, let me do it as soon as possible and let me show you that I can do it, where it's not always like that.
Why does that go away?
No.
It does when we take it away from them.
Yes. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Okay.
That idea of what have I taken away from them that they can maybe do on their own? Going back to that idea of a tool. What are they capable of doing on their own? And I maybe have taken this away in a loving way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying parents are doing this for any other reason, for efficiency, so they can maybe have more quality family time. Efficiency because they don't want them to hurt. Efficiency because they don't want to have them struggle. It's done out of love.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're not setting them up for long-term success in high school when it all counts, and in post-secondary educations, and then being able to open all those doors for jobs and financial freedom in the future. When you ignore something like even your finances, we know, you guys know very well, that is a great thing that you do here. Planning early.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to have someone come and speak to our senior class from Paladin. And it was awesome for the kids to hear, if I plan early, and that's they're only capable of that if they know how to handle things now.
Yeah. You've done such a good job of kind of leading into each one of my next questions. And that really was it, as a parent, a grandparent, a coach, a mentoring adult around these students, helping them develop their skills. Is you've given me some very basics that, I feel like your wisdom, my gosh, you could go down rabbit holes, but zooming it out and saying, what are the basics that I can function with? What I've heard you say is back to repeating one of the items was If they can do it on their own, that's a key foundation piece. If they can't, then you need to spend time on it. If they can, then move to the next thing. But that concept of you can be a helper, but don't take it from them.
Right.
And those are the two things that I've heard you say so far along the way. Am I missing anything that you're saying, or is there any of those other like big ahas that you wanna put in here before I keep going with some of my questions?
No, go ahead.
So, what can families do today to be intentional about building these life skills before adulthood? Those foundations are great, but when you're living in the moment, sometimes you forget. Are there any other big pillars that are worthwhile to try to say, here's 3 things to think about when you're in the moment with these students?
Well, I think sometimes it can become very overwhelming, especially if you feel like there's a lot of tools that need to happen. And I don't know about you, but when I would go to parent seminars or, other seminars, it becomes overwhelming. How am I going to do all of this? And I think the thing that we need to start doing, and if you are a single parent or if you are in a relationship, really diving into what are some things that we want to change in our language. It's documented that our thoughts will change when we start using different words. And so if nothing else, you could start talking. You could start using keywords. You can do this, or this is not an option, or how can I help? Like those are things in terms of language that you can start using. With that language will then come change of thought. That will help parents or trusted adults to start now looking at other areas and coming up with different ways to maybe find those tools or see those tools. And then that will then lead into action. So if nothing else, just starting to change our language. Because again, language leads to change in thoughts, and change of thoughts leads into change of action.
Yeah.
Because it's too overwhelming to think, my child's 12, how are they going to go to college? The other idea there that I think a lot of parents will do is they will say, well, if you don't get better grades, you're not going to be able to get your license. Fair. You can also explain why, but they're not in that realm right now. And so I like to use maybe broader language or images of, if you are continue down this path, doors are going to be closed for you that I know you want to have open. And it may be opportunities post-secondary. I don't believe that everybody should do a 4-year college. Both my children did, and it was a great experience. But whether it be 4-year, 2-year, some kind of licensure training, you don't want opportunities to be closed to you. And helping them to see that you can still open those doors. If we can increase your abilities, can we help you get better grades? Can we broaden your resume even as a high schooler with different activities? That language of saying, I could probably open that door again. I mean, I've had countless kids that when we start using that language, they stop and say, but can I open those doors? And some of them, you have to be honest. No, sorry.
Yeah.
You did really poorly your first 2 years of high school. Some doors are permanently closed for you. But let's do our best to open all those that are perfect for you. I think a lot of adults also will say, well, you'll have no opportunities after high school. That's not true. There are colleges that will take kids that did really, really poorly. There are trade schools, there are things. So saying that is not the truth. But the truth is, the worse you do or the less confidence you have in knowing how to do your job of being a student, the less opportunities you will have. And then you'll be maybe pigeonholed or only have a few opportunities. And that might not be where you're supposed to be.
I can't decide, Megan, if I'm writing these down as a parent or if I'm writing these down as the host today. I mean, oh my gosh, it's so good. So changing thoughts is such a key piece because that leads to action. So changing lingo, changing the words that we're using. And
even
then,
in our own head, right?
Yeah.
We know we can be our worst critic, and kids are their worst critic. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that was perfect. You should just talk. If you just want to just take us where you want. I mean, it's so good. And so as we talk about these tactics, and we start thinking about future earning potential
Mhm.
and financial discipline and the ability to handle money responsibility, it
Mhm.
honestly doesn't matter what realm of life we're talking about. If we're
Correct.
talking about health, food, money,
Right.
whatever it is, it's all the same. Starts with what's in your mind and what your thoughts are, and then it
Right.
just goes from there.
Well, in going back to the thoughts, and then I do wanna bring something up about the financial part of it, but we all are our worst critic.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes too with parents when something maybe has not gone well,
Mhm.
instead of telling them what they haven't done well, ask.
Mhm.
Help them to be able to articulate what they might already be saying in their head because at the end of the day, it's already done. They failed the test, they messed up, they made a mistake. Now, what would you do differently this next time? Or what are you going to do differently next time? Because as a trusted adult, that's what we need to know. We can't go back and fix it. We know that that's not something that you can do. So asking them to dig deep and finding that self-reflection is so important and it's not done enough in most schools simply because you get a test, you get a standardized test and this is what you're good at and this is what you're not good at and
Mhm.
you need that self-reflection because they're not going to change unless they own their self-reflection of it,
Yeah.
that they understand that piece. And the other piece about finances is that I think kids also have to feel comfortable with where they're at. As we know, I mean, if I would have stayed in my original career, I think our house would look a lot different. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think recognizing that no matter where you fall in the money that's coming in, you can still be fiscally
Yeah.
responsible and manage that and have clear expectations and making sure that if you know who you are as a human, you're okay in earning less because you know that this is where you're supposed to be. And I think that's an important piece that people just see if I make more money, then I'm gonna be happier. And at the end of the day, we're happy when we know we have the confidence
Mhm.
to take that next step in whatever that is and to plan accordingly.
Sometimes that is a lesson to know who we are as humans doesn't come until much later in
Mhm.
life, if ever, for
Right,
some people,
right.
and what a gift to give the young people in our lives to
Mhm.
help them get there because it impacts so many decisions that get made, whether the
Right.
financial realm or elsewhere, and so, what a good point to kind of bring some of this home, and so if you did have to give one piece of advice to parents preparing their kids for life beyond the classroom,
Oh, goodness.
what would that look like? And I have one other, so this doesn't have to be how about social media? Just real quick, Megan,
Oh,
like,
gosh.
there are so many pieces of
Right.
advice out there for parents.
Mhm.
Do you listen to it? What do you say when you see some of the social media? And this is where you are a trained expert.
Yeah. I have a hard time because I definitely have some strong ideas.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think there's a quick fix.
Mhm.
And I think as parents, when we're exhausted and overwhelmed, we want the quick fix.
Mhm.
And we need to realize that, you know, it's going to take some time and we're not going to be perfect. And um, clear expectations at the beginning of every school year is a really important thing.
Mhm.
You know, we had no huge academic issues in our home, but we still had a contract every year.
Okay.
We had a expectation contract that we wrote together. My husband and I would, draw the line in the sand for certain things. And then there was a negotiation of what made sense. You can't just say, do your best.
Mhm.
One of my children would probably have thought that, well, actually, both of them probably thought the same way, but some kids, doing your best has to be straight A's,
Mhm.
and doing your best is just getting by. So what is that? You can't just say do your best.
Yeah.
You
Will
know,
you tell us more about this contract?
sure.
Just bring this to life so
Yeah.
that we can see
So
what it looked like.
I recommend that for really any family,
Mhm.
especially when it comes around school, because it is their job. That's where a lot of the angst and frustration come up in the house, obviously. And it will be things that you, for example, do your best, but we expect that you get this GPA. Um, And then that would be that discussion. Do you believe that you can get, let's say, a 3.5 this school year? Yes, no. If a child really doesn't believe that, then they should be able to articulate it. Mom, I'm really not great at physics. I've struggled with it in the past. I do believe that I can get this. So that is where that negotiation, and not in that they're in control, but they have a say. And so you trying your best, and you have this GPA. And then how would you know that you're trying your best? Well, we always did weekly meetings. The kids ran them. I did one with one of my children. My husband did it with the other. That was their choice. And we explained that's when we're going to know if you're trying your best. It's not going to be that you ultimately failed a test or did really, really poorly. That is you showing us, hey, I went into office hours. I tried this. I tried that. And that's that communication and where that grace would come in. We're very black and white at our school and in our home, and we have grace in the middle. There's no gray. And that came through in their college years as well. There was expectations. We paid for their undergrad. It was a huge sacrifice. And so there was an expectation of grades. And if those weren't met, they needed to communicate to us well before them showing us their grades, if that makes sense.
You had said at the beginning of the show here, school is their job.
Yeah.
And it didn't come to life to me until you just explained how really this shows up as a contract, much like an employment agreement when you are in the workplace. And hopefully that's something that everybody can resonate with, that you have an agreement with an employer or a parent or, among the parties.
And it can be a fluid document.
Yeah.
I remember at one point, one of my kids did poorly on something and it popped up in my email and I was really angry. And I said, how did you not tell me about this? And they said, well, I was going to tell you at our homework meeting. And I had to take a step back and be like, you are completely correct. But the problem is that I think we need to put this into the contract that as soon as you know about a grade that drops below a certain point, and we had a very clear what that was, we need you to tell us within 24 hours so that if there are things that you can do to fix that or move forward, we're not waiting a week for our homework meeting. And that was a really empowering thing, I think, for my child to be able to say, hey, like this was a contract, and it was done respectfully on both ways. And I had to then step back and say, you're right. Like I didn't have that. That you're not quote unquote in trouble. I wish you would have told me, but that's a fair statement.
So good, Megan. My gosh, every time you say something, I'm walking away with another really big nugget. So back to that one piece of advice. Do you feel like you have something that's good to sum this up? Or if not, you have been full of things all the way through. So
I just think that we need to remember that our kids are capable of a lot. They're capable of doing so many things. And with social media or even, simple DoorDash, right? All the conveniences that we have in our world that help us have more time to do the things that we love. In that, I think we've taken away their ability to do some stuff. I had a family once that they valued being able to be self-sufficient. And so they required each of their kids to learn one recipe and they had to cook once a month.
Okay.
These don't have to be hard things. They don't always have to be things that are centered around their job of being a student. They can also be things that are fun or that add value to the home, whether it be laundry or my son wasn't allowed to drive until he could show my husband that he could change a flat tire. That was something that he valued. He didn't do it for my daughter, but he did it for my son. But that was something that it can be even things that if school right now is really tough, or if your child is feeling incapable as much at school, it can be things where they can feel capable, and then you can lean into that. So the big thing, your child is really capable of a lot of stuff, and just taking a step back and helping them find the tools to be successful and gain that confidence. Because once they have the confidence in themselves, it's life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. You share that, the student, or kind of in summary, we share a common contact, Tammy Lucius,
Yeah.
and she has been my mentor for many years. But she has always said, in leadership, and as kind of in leadership in the workplace, people can do so much more than they think they can, and to set them up for that level of success. And there's a book right now that you may have read. It's called Comfort Crisis, and it goes back to some of the principles you just talked about there, where we have created a world that is fueled by technology, and there's all these comforts that we have, yet our body hasn't caught up to that level of efficiency or comfort. And you have to set yourself up for, things that are challenging. You have to put yourself in that position to do. And so much of what you said here really comes back to that concept of making people stretch, even when they don't even realize it's maybe stretching. It's giving them new concepts, new things to think about. But that's a good read if people haven't read that one. And sometimes, it's hard to find time to do that. So I'm a big fan of audiobooks as well. But getting that, it's the mindset of pushing yourself beyond what you think you're capable of, or those around you. The other thing that you said there was fun. And I think that's a part that you get into these conversations and they get heavy, and you talk about your kids and their growth and development. And there's a gentleman by the name of Dan Sullivan. He runs a program called Strategic Coach. It's based out of Chicago. And that was one of the books that I was just recently reading by him, that don't forget the fun. And so you can accomplish so much when you take a concept or a theory or something that you're trying to get across, and you put a layer of fun into it, and you don't even realize that it becomes education and growing and learning if you're having some fun. And that's, I think, something we all need to remember as parents and educators and all of that don't forget to have some fun along the way.
Exactly. And that confidence can be built around the fun. And then the harder things can come after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any recommended resource that you have for those that are listening today on this topic, other than maybe just seek you out? You should do a podcast or a daily post of your wisdom. I think you'd have a lot of followers. But what would you recommend for us as parents and as mentoring adults in students' lives?
I think trusting yourself. I think a lot of times, not that books aren't great. I was not allowed to read any self-help books for years with Pearson because they wanted my stuff to be original. But I think, again, don't overcomplicate it. Just going back and saying, do they have the tool to accomplish this? If not, how can I teach them that? And then how can I hold them accountable to it? And then not taking that back away from them. And, this is a finance podcast as well. I think it's very important to be helping kids from a young age to talk about money and do that, and not giving them unlimited funds. It's not, they very quickly are going to have to do their finances on their own and to be able to manage that. So when they're in college or in high school, having some kind of boundaries of what is acceptable to be able to spend. And this is what you've got. Otherwise, you got to figure it out. These are little lessons that you can be doing in middle school or high school that will help them in the long run. Giving them the credit card and letting them get whatever they need is not going to set them up for success later either.
You bring such a good point. Our last episode was with a recent graduate from Creighton in Omaha.
And where my daughter went.
I didn't know that. Okay, there we go. They might know each other,
They
actually.
maybe do.
And she had such good wisdom to share, that even though her dad was in finance and she'd had some exposure to things, it's not until you're in the moment that you have your own aha moment about it. And it wasn't until she was through her first semester and she started to recognize how expensive college was and the different pieces that she had to be responsible for as part of it. It didn't sink in until she was in the moment. And so giving our young adults around us and our kids the opportunity to have some of those aha moments before they're out on their own and navigating it all by themselves. And I think that concept is, whether we're talking finances or any of the bigger picture lessons that we're wanting them to learn, is give them that opportunity well beyond or well before they're outside of the house.
And when you talk about having little struggles or dealing with some failures or coming up against little things, I think that can be exactly what you talk about with finances. So if they have unlimited finances, they don't ever have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
And we know in their first job, no matter how much they're making, they're still going to have to make choices.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just DoorDash whatever you want if it's not your own money. But when it's yours, then you can make more educated decisions, or you stop and think, or maybe you are going to do the DoorDash because you need to be able to get to whatever you maybe need to get to. I think it's so important that they start learning how to manage that, because there's a lot of pride that comes with that. And as we know, being adults and being capable of paying for all of our own stuff and not going into debt, and knowing that we have a future plan of maybe some relaxation in retirement, hopefully grandbabies for me, that only comes when you have the skills to know what to do with your money as well.
Yeah.
So.
There's a game that I still play with myself, and it's all comes back to mindset that, there's at different times of life, you feel like there's a lot more going out than maybe
Right.
that's coming in. And so having a little fun with that, where it's nice when you can go to wherever and buy the clothes you want, or
Right.
it's springtime and you want to buy the things for make your porch look nice or whatever it is. Or you look at your closet or you look at your garage and say, what do I already have? And what can we do to be creative with what I already have? And it's such a mental
Right.
shift. And so that, as a financial advisor, ties back to the financial side of things. Is so much of it is taking these lessons that you have
Yep.
shared with us, figuring out, how to have some fun with it and make a game of it, and being conservative and being creative and using a
Right.
skill set that you've learned. And so, Megan, you have been absolutely fantastic, wonderful along the way. Any recommended resources you can think of, or otherwise just come back to yourself and lead with your gut?
I think lead with your gut.
Okay, it's great.
I think also recognizing that you probably aren't going to be doing what your fellow parent next door might be doing.
Yeah.
So it's okay to not be the typical parent. It's okay.
Well, what I heard Megan say today was a lot of great nuggets all the way through. And so if you joined a little bit late, make sure that you start at the top, because Megan has given us just really great, tangible concepts that we can apply with the young adults in our life and the kids in our life. And I would say, one of the things that we have made available with each series is we do a download. And this one we're doing, what issues do I need to consider as my child becomes independent? And it's a checklist. And these are really quite tangible things. And so as an example, in case of emergency, do you wish to have access to important records? And that's an important conversation as your kids walk out the door and they're 18 and they might be in a situation where they have a health or an academic or a financial situation. What's that relationship going to look like between the parent and the child? And so it has things like that that are good talking points and good conversation starters for families if they haven't had them. And so that's always available on our website, and that is paladinfinancial.com. But you can also go to our podcast website at paladinfinancialtalk.com. Well, Megan, it has been an absolute pleasure having you. You've given us fantastic things. I love that you have brought it down to some really simple, basic things. And so before we wrap up, if you're sitting here as a listener and you said, oh my gosh, this sounds like me, or you just want a second opinion on anything that we've talked about, our team at Paladin Financial is offering a 15-minute no obligation conversation to help get some clarity. And then I also want to make sure that Megan, and where, I don't know that you're taking outside calls from people, but I do want to recognize Gentry Academy. It is a charter school here in the Twin Cities in Vadnais Heights. It's grades 5 through 12. And one of the taglines that goes along with the school is building tomorrow's leaders. And it's really based off of 3 pillars of academic, athletics, and leadership. And so I encourage anybody to visit the website at gentryacademy.org. Megan can be found there as well. Or you can call the school at 651-604-8300. And Megan is the leadership director there, but she also has several other resources from her life as an author and a leader in this space. And so anything else, Megan, that you would recommend for how they get a hold of Gentry, or anything that you want me to bring as a call to action here?
No, they can certainly find my email there. If they're interested in the school or they're interested in talking further, that's how they can best get a hold of me.
Perfect. Fantastic. And so Paladin Financial, again, is offering a 15-minute no obligation conversation. You can reach us at paladinfinancial.com. In the top right-hand corner, there's a booking tool, booking link, and you can click that for that 15-minute consultation. You can always reach us at 651-842-8406. Follow along on social media. And then again, get that download this month on what issues do I need to consider as my child becomes independent. Again, that checklist is at paladinfinancial.com or paladinfinancialtalk.com. Thanks again for listening. We hope to see you on the next episode. And again, Megan, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.